also regulates broadband. It also regulates telephones, consumer protections for all these things. So this could be good and bad. Like I said before, for ham radio, we're probably, what I mentioned was a wish list, but we're probably going to see some deregulation because they don't want to spend money policing us, which is fair. But also, in terms of other things like wireless networks and I mean, the elephant in the room is Elon with Starlink, and also not even just Starlink, but Tesla with in-vehicle communications and all sorts of stuff. So there are a number of different things that could come out of this. It would be premature to speculate, but we'll see as the comments roll in what's going on, what's going to happen, and what's coming up. We'll see how many of them actually get considered by the FCC, and whether, to be honest, how many of them are going to get blocked by the courts, because the courts have been like a major factor. A number of different things have been so, they've been blocked by the courts. Like, for example, his order on birthright citizenship is the court basically blocked that temporarily, and we'll see what happens to that. We also see other things on various things happening, like medical care and all that stuff is being blocked by the courts. So that pretty much is that, and it's a wait and see. But it is something to look at. I mean, in the context of what we might seek to get out of this administration. I'm trying to be deliberately non-political, to be honest. I mean, I have my political views, but I don't think that I want to impose it on this audience, on my audience. I think you guys are here for the radio tech. So anyways, alright, so we'll leave that at that. Yeah, and even though we did leave that at that, there is more news coming down, unfortunately. So, Trump is now basically getting rid of the Voice of America. And as a kid, I listened to the VOA, basically telling me a lot about America and the United States. There were two main shortwave networks I listened to. The two main shortwave stations. That was the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, and the Voice of America. And the Voice of America taught me a lot of things about, what's going on in the U.S., but also I had a good view on world news. And one of the correspondents at the VOA is actually a good friend of mine, Steve Herman, doesn't come in VOA, but he actually was sidelined from the agency, I think, at the end of February. So it just caught me by surprise. I actually saw Jamie Dupree, NS3T, he posted about the VOA on Facebook, and I believe he might also be posting about it on Substack as well. Jamie is like a veteran reporter in Washington, and he's covered a lot of things in Washington. So Jamie, and Jamie also, he had some personal stories on ham radio. I mean, he suffers from a disease where he can't speak properly, and he's had to do some interesting things in ham radio to preserve his ability to operate radio. At least currently, he can operate CW, but so Jamie actually talked about that. I was surprised to learn that Steve Herman, that we saw in VOA, was sidelined. So, that is something interesting. So, yeah. So anyway, the VOA is more or less gone. And then not only the VOA is, not only is the VOA gone, but I mean, they're pretty much doing it with haste. So, I mean, this is like this all of a sudden. Anyway, so the employees are put on leave. The executive order, Trump outlines 7 agencies to reduce in size, including the U.S. Agency for Global Media, which oversees the Voice of America. The reduction was made to agencies Trump saw as unnecessary the order states. And then Trump is delivering on his promise to make our government more efficient. That's Caroline Leavitt told the USA Today on Saturday. American taxpayers should not be funding anti-American propaganda in the name of German journalism, which is kind of like the opposite of VOA. Anyway, in an email sent to Agency for Global Media Employees, obtained by Reuters and New York Times, the agency's Human Resources Director told employees they were being placed on administrative leave with full pay and benefits. Okay. Yeah, okay. Wow. So the VOA is gone. I mean, the VOA has kind of shut down a lot of the shortwave already, but they were doing other things as well, too. And I will tell you what Steve Herman, what he had to say, because he is like probably one of the main people at the VOA who I knew. And Steve talked about, he says he's speaking here in his personal capacity as known as a representative of any agency or organization, past, present, and future. He says, my colleagues in our broadcast devoted to telling America's stories in the world, honestly, fairly, and with unwavering commitment to truth, are being silenced this weekend. The de facto destruction of the voice of America is nothing less than a betrayal of the idea that gave birth to the institution and made it relevant throughout World War II, the Cold War, and in decades after the collapse of the Berlin Wall. VOA has been a trusted presence, not just because of what was said, but for said it with facts, with fairness, and with balance, no matter which political party was in power. I had the honor of serving on the front lines in dozens of countries, reporting on TV, radio, and the web, from conflict zones covering historic summits, and in more recent years, navigating the complexities of global diplomacy as VOA's White House bureau chief, and then its chief national correspondent. I was in Fukushima as radioactive fallout descended immediately after the quake and tsunami was causing nuclear disaster with timely accurate information when panic and misinformation threatened public safety. I boarded military helicopters to reach the worst affected communities destroyed by Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines to bear witness to unimaginable devastation while giving voice to those who had lost everything. Whether it was filling stories from war zones or pressing presidents and other leaders in palaces for answers on major geopolitical issues, I always understood that my duty was not to power but to VOA's stakeholders and our global audiences, especially in countries without a free or developed press. Many of our colleagues risked their lives to get the story right. Journalists whose voices were sometimes the only source of truth in their native languages. I've met many in our audience who told me VOA gave them their first taste of freedom, led to their decisions to defect from authoritarian lands, or that they now speak our language because of VOA's learning English broadcast. So VOA actually had a lot of broadcasts teaching people how to speak English, and also had like a special English where they would have like slow and simple English to teach people how to speak English. Destroying VOA, yeah, and that includes pronouns, by the way. Destroying VOA, along with RFE, RL, and Radio Free Asia, is a national security issue. These entities, funded by the American people, have been among the most effective instruments of American soft power. A bridge to those who may never set foot on our soil but understand our values because they heard them in one of the dozens of languages in which we broadcast. Yeah. And he goes on to talk about, you can read this whole thing, where he talks about the many of these institutions turns their backs on those around the world who would have counted on us. It is this a unique platform that no other country can replicate. It was never about just about Americans' voice, it was about America's integrity. There will be celebrations in the autocratic Hall of the Power this weekend in Moscow, Minsk, Beijing, Pyongyang, and Tehran. They will cheer the totally ridiculous excuses that was necessary to burn down USAGM because its broadcast outlets have become riddled with spies. Its journalists have colluded with radical leftist advocacy organizations and created false narratives. All these in quotes, by the way. Such canards were hurled at VOA during the 1950s, red baiting, and again under a previous short-lived USAGM politically appointed leadership. Historians and outside unbiased investigators concluded such charges were unfounded, and they were likely without merit. Now, it would not be surprising to see legal challenges against such defamations in the weeks and months ahead. Any hope of ultimately saving viewers and other U.S. AGM broadcasters might rest with the judiciary. The righteous warriors of the Constitution strove daily to live up to our charter, to be accurate, objective, and comprehensive. That promise, more than any other broadcast of Byline, is a legacy worth protecting. To effectively shutter the voice of America is to dim a beacon that burned bright during some of the darkest hours since 1942. Veritatem Dilexi. Wow, yeah, and you can read this at steveherman.press. So Steve, I think Steve was interviewed here one time on Ted's show, on QSA radio show. So it would be probably nice to hear that again. But yeah, well, I mean, we've clearly lost or something. So, but we'll see how this shakes out. I have a feeling it's probably not done yet, but we'll see how that goes. Well, you might be a little surprised that the next story has nothing to do with Trump. Kind of in a roundabout way. The next story has to do with ham pie. So ham pie, one of our favorite things on ham radio.